Welcome back to the channel. This is Sean's Take on Things. I'm Sean. Today, my take is on French press. Does it really make the best cup of coffee? Stick around. Okay, welcome back to the channel. And if you like this content, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification so you find out when we get released new videos. But today we're talking about coffee, a subject near and dear to my heart. But the French press is the coffee that I make every day. And French press, what do they call a French press in France? A press. So a French press is a very simple device. It's a beaker to hold water with a handle, and there's a mesh that'll allow liquid through but not grounds of coffee. So when you press this to the bottom, it presses all of the grounds to the bottom of the carafe and you pour off your coffee. So why might French press be better coffee than other coffees? One, you're using properly temp water, and that would be true of an AeroPress or any pour over. These are all good. I prefer this one just because there's no paper filters. It's just a personal preference. So when you're making drip coffee, you grind the coffee so it's like flour almost and put it in a coffee pot and a coffee filter, and you drip water through it. The water doesn't stay in contact with the grounds long enough for the grounds to impart the best parts of the coffee to the liquid. When you do a French press, you control how long the steeping is. So if you like a more character-filled, bold cup of coffee, you let it sit for longer. If you like lighter, and here's the thing. Here's your fact for today. Light roast coffee has the most caffeine in it. Medium roast next, dark roast the least. The longer you roast a coffee bean, the less caffeine it remains. So we have coffee here, outside of its bag, but it's hard to see, but you can see that the coffee beans are somewhat shiny, and that's some oils that are still left. If you look at your coffee and it's completely dry looking, it means it was roasted a long time ago. So you do want coffee that has a little bit of a shine to it. And the bag that your coffee comes in should have one of those little circles in it with a little divot hole in the middle. And that allows just enough of the condensation to keep the coffee fresh. So when I make my French press coffee, I always fill it to just below this top band, because I know how much coffee that is. And that amount of coffee requires 4 tablespoons of beans that are coarsely ground. Now, that's about 25 grams, 4 tablespoons. So I have my tablespoon, and I'm going to use the proper grinder. So this grinder, it's a handheld grinder, and a lot of these things that you can get, I'll put links to this French press and this grinder in the description. And if you happen to buy one through the link from this channel, it'll help out the channel, and I would appreciate it. So this kind of grinder you can use for spices and all kinds of things. has a canister at the bottom to catch the ground coffee. There's an adjuster here for the coarseness. Whether you're making espresso, which is like a powder, or French roast, which is like rock salt, is the grind we're going for. And then the top is where the grounds go in. We will put 4 tablespoons into the grinder. And this particular grinder, that's almost its maximum. It's very close to the top. It's hard to tell with all the shadows and the lighting. But put the lid back on, and I'll time lapse this a little bit. And you just grind it. And you grind it till it's done, and you can tell it's done because the grinder stops grinding. Now it is a good idea to take a look at your grounds that are coming out to make sure that they're correct and you have the settings set right so that you can adjust it if it's not. Okay, so there we are. No more grinding, just smooth. And we have our coffee grounds. And we're going to go ahead and put them into, and you just dump them right in the bottom. Just like that. And I should have started some water, but I'll save you that time. We're going to heat up our water. This is my water kettle. The lid of my water kettle has a thermometer built right into it. And that temperature is between 195 and 205 degrees, the little red area. And that's where you want the water, right around 200 degrees. At 212, the water boils. You don't want boiling water, just short of that. And then the gooseneck allows you to control the pour, but we'll talk about that when we are controlling the pour. While we're waiting for the water to boil, let's talk about coffee for a second. This particular coffee is from Sumatra and that region, and that's a region that I tend to prefer coffee from. Coffee comes from a very narrow band around the planet where coffee is capable of being grown, and it's only grown in that band at a certain altitude. So you sort of need mountains. So you can grow in Hawaii. There are coffee fields. In Brazil and Argentina, Colombia, of course, everybody has heard of Colombian coffee. But then when you get to Africa, you have a whole different set, and there's very specific characteristics to each place that grows coffee to their coffee. And then when you get blends, it sort of brings it all together. I do like Sumatran coffee. That's the region that I like the most. And what happens when you roast a coffee bean, you get the most characteristic from it at the medium roast, and that's what this is. At a light roast, it doesn't quite release the flavors and characteristics of the region. Medium roast does, while leaving all of the characteristics intact. They are released intact. When you dark roast it, all of the characteristics go away, and all you taste is dark roast. It still tastes like coffee, but it doesn't have any of the characteristics of the region where it's from. So my advice is always to drink medium roast coffee whenever possible. When you get to big chain stores that sell coffee, it's almost always dark roast coffee, so that they can buy coffee from anywhere and make it all taste the same. Of course, you wouldn't want the same ordered coffee to taste different at each visit. And I understand that, but when I'm making coffee at home and I've spent money on the beans, I want better coffee than I get at a chain. You do want to use good water. My whole house is filtered, and then I have a secondary filter for drinking water, so it's very filtered here. If your water is very hard, it would add minerals and things to the coffee that would change the characteristics. I'm not a coffee snob or anything, but these are the things, and the reasons you do this type of coffee making is to enhance the cup of coffee you're drinking. If you just like any old sort of coffee tasting beverage, get an automatic drip coffee maker, get a Keurig, whatever you want, and you'll be happy. But if you're looking for maybe sometimes a better cup of coffee, a more depth of flavor to your coffee, then this is the answer. All right, let me check on that water. So our thermometer is right on 200, so we're good to go. And we're going to, when you pour the water into your French press, you want to make sure you cover all of it. And the gooseneck doesn't pour very fast, and you can watch what you're doing and make sure it's all covered. And once you get it all covered, you actually want to take a spoon and make sure it's all the coffee's into the water and steeping. And you can see there's a little froth that forms on the top. That means your beans are really roasted recently, and that's a good sign for the coffee you're making. So after you get that stirred and everything agitated, you go ahead and pour in the rest of your water. Now luckily for me, the pot that I use basically holds the same amount of water as my French press. And if you remember, we come right up to that ridge because of the amount of coffee we used. And then you take your press. This should all be secure and tight. This will unscrew, but make sure it's tight. And you make sure that the press presses all of the coffee grounds so that they are submerged. And they've been agitated. So then you just leave this in this condition for 5 to 6 minutes, and then we'll come back in and press our coffee. So we're going to let this steep. I'm not sure how much you can tell, but it really has taken on a nice deep color. It's been 5 minutes. So now it's time. So when you plunge the thing, you don't want to create a lot of pressure and splash or do anything, knock anything over. So it's really just the weight of your hand on the plunger. This is the plunger. And you're not in a hurry. You're letting sort of gravity do the work. And as the plunger gets to the bottom, we have coffee. So in the lid, you just turn the lid until you find the slots that allow the coffee to pour. And we have a cup of coffee here. pretty cup of coffee. And I don't put cream or sugar in my coffee. It's just like that. Ah, that's good. So now, this is good coffee that will just go cold if I leave it in the French press. So I do have a really good thermos that will hold my next cup of coffee until I want it. So I have my next cup all ready. I have this cup ready to go. 5 minutes. And you can use, now I used a manual grinder for this demonstration. I do have an electric grinder that will grind it. It's kind of loud for on video. My family thinks it's loud early in the morning. But you can use an electric one. I'll put a link to one in the description. So let me know if you've tried French press coffee and if you prefer it to other ways of making coffee at home. Some people still like Mr. Coffee automatic drip coffee. Let me know. Leave me a comment. What kind of coffee do you make at your house? Okay, so that's Sean's take on French press coffee. I'm going to sit down and enjoy my coffee now. Let me know if there's any videos that you would like to see, maybe on other kinds of coffee. We have planned a run on setting up your own home bar for entertaining for the holidays. So look forward to that. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We appreciate it. Use the links to shop for any of these items that you may want. And we'll see you next time. That's my take on the French press. Bye now.